An interesting thing happened a couple of days ago, and I want to get into why this thing is interesting to me. Okay, we have this show, the Sports Hub, Felger and Maz, and one of the hosts, Michael Felger, actually began mocking this guy, Roy Halladay, who died in a tragic plane crash. And I'm going to just break down why this is interesting to me, that this guy did this and how it kind of ties in and relates to some of the work I've been doing, and why it's kind of a deflection. And they're also doing what I call strawmanning. And as if you know, in gematria, of course, Michael is 33, right? And even at this guy Roy Halladay's memorial, and again, I'm not mocking his death at all, and I do not want to mock anyone who has tragically passed at all. But if you look at his memorial, there's a 34 and a 32. What's the number in between 34 and 32? Right? The hidden number. Right? So, okay, so let's take a listen to this show, the Felger and Maz, right? The Sports Hub. And where this Michael Felger guy mocks Roy Halladay after he dies. And I'm going to stop it at a certain point. So.
Remember when we mentioned it yesterday? And the first thing I said is, I hope that guy knew how to fly his rig. And that I hope he's not JFK Jr., one of these guys, just a thrill seeker who died seeking a thrill. And I sort of threw some shade on him. I mean, I didn't do what everyone does, which is, oh my God, what a tragedy. This is so sad. I said, yeah. Let me hear some details about this.
Okay, first of all, the guy is asking for the details before he can consider any of it to be tragic. Now, they are obviously trying to mock that I look for the details in some of these hoaxes that happen in the media, right, where there have been reported tragic murders, right? I'm not mocking anyone. I am purely looking at the facts. You know, occasionally I will joke around in my videos, but it's kind of to keep things light. It's a little bit of levity, if you will. But I never want to mock anyone or mock any situation in which a person has been murdered, or all I want to do is get down to the facts, right? And I know there are first responders. I understand all that, right? But from my perspective, I see certain things that happen in media and certain patterns just from what I've experienced. And I just want to share those experiences and those observations and those revelations that I have. We should all know what's going on by now, that this is a strawman incident where they are strawmanning situation. This guy, Michael Felger, is falling on the sword, if you will, right? To kind of, and again, I'm the rough ashlar in this situation, right? Where they're sort of mocking me by saying you shouldn't be making jokes even around a tragic passing, which is true, right? Which is true. But the reason why it's a deflection is because I wasn't making jokes about tragic passings. I was making jokes about other things in my video, but also talking about how this stuff ties into the Masons and other things, right? The bottom line is they have to deflect from the secrets I'm revealing, because the revealing or the revelation of some of these secrets can get people killed, right? It's sort of dangerous in a weird way, right? The mainstream media is never going to cover the things I'm covering. They're going to always talk me down. They're going to always do hit pieces, right? Chris Hayes just did a hit piece with this this black Republican guy on YouTube, and then I'm gonna break that down as well. But yeah, let's get back into more of this audio.
Commercial pilot. But whatever, maybe that's the same thing. I don't know. His father was a pilot. So he's got it in his blood a little bit. But he's not a militarily trained pilot. He's not a professionally trained He is a Joe Q citizen who buys a plane that folds up and you can put in your garage. And that's amphibious. You can land it on the water. Whee! Oh, woo! Look! I just landed on the water, everybody. I'm going to tweet it. Splat, you're dead with 2 kids. Moron. And in fact...
And of course, we know in my first video back to YouTube on Indigo Notes, I called tweeters morons, right? I called them 13-year-old morons. This is why he's saying moron, right? When I heard that, I was like, oh, okay. But again, me calling people on Twitter morons has nothing to do with these divide and conquer hoaxes that they've been perpetuating in the media. It has nothing to do with that. So they're 2 separate topics on the same video. And again, I don't ever want to mock anybody who's lost a loved one or had a loved one lost. In fact, I'm probably sharing this information to help you out, to maybe help you figure out who did it, right? I just want to help. I'm not here to mock anyone's death. So let's continue with just a little bit more of this.
The thing was designed to be like a sports car, right?
I mean, it's kind of cool to look at. Like, yeah, it's a car. Oh, it looks like a car. Cool. And I can put my hand out the window. You can fly with your hand out the window. Whee! Look at me. I'm going to tweet it. Dead. To the point that you put your life at risk. Like that I find that offensive. That you are that cavalier about life. That you're going to get it's more important to get your rocks off. So it's left over from childhood. Like, we all have a little dorky thing that's left over from childhood, right? Mine is sports. I was a sports dork when I was 6. I'm a sports dork now. I'm a dork. Okay? But that's
that was actually kind of funny. Okay. Overall, but of course the guy mocking the guy's death is not funny in any way at all. And I understand what they're doing here, right? This is a classic Masonic move, right? Again, I'm the rough ashlar in this position, right? But what they're doing is they're deflecting, right? They're not taking into account the other points I'm making about numerology and the patterns that happen frequently, and how these hoaxes, there's a drive, there's an objective that they're trying to get to. There's a narrative they're always pushing, right? Why are they pushing that narrative? You know, there are $1 billion companies behind this, you know, Soros and the like. Why are they behind these things, right? Okay, so I see a couple of people complaining about not being able to monetize on their videos on YouTube, and I have a couple of thoughts on this. My first big thought is a lot of people are trying to monetize fair use videos. Now, of course, I hate to argue for YouTube at all because they suppress my views, because I speak truth, right? And they do that. But a lot of you are trying to monetize on fair use videos, which means you're using multimedia and pulling media from all over the place, all these different companies. And naturally, because you're doing that, there's going to be clashes. That has nothing to do with the truth value of your network or your channel, or that has nothing to do with your message. And it has everything to do with you trying to capitalize on a fair use video. You know, fair use videos, the sweetener in the deal is that you get to make the fair use video if you don't profit or monetize off of it. And AdSense and getting AdSense on your videos and companies being willing to advertise with you, they have to sort of align with the other companies that you're showing in your video, right? If there's a clash there, there's a just in a business sense, it can't happen, right? So from a business standpoint, a lot of you are getting flagged not because you're telling any great truths, but because you're trying to monetize and profit off of fair use vids, right? Okay, I've been noticing this thing, and I call it the Strawman ad hominem attack grid. Right, I've been getting deep into rhetoric, logic, and psychology and how they kind of all blend together, right? Because it's all kind of a soup in a weird way. And some of these things are used to attack people and, So I would just kind of want to point out how a person can be attacked, segmented, how their points can be deflected from with this attack grid, which I call the Strawman ad hominem attack grid. Right. So in this case, we're going to use the Trump P grabbing audio. Right. We all know what Trump said. Right. And we should all know, but of course we don't, because people are focused on the meat, the dirt of it. But we should all know that this was a violation of privacy, releasing the audio. Overall, I think the whole thing is fake. I think Trump went in a recording studio and did that, right? I think the whole thing is fake. But if we want to take on the fake story for a second, right? This is a violation of someone's privacy, right? And what I said about it at first was that, well, that's kind of man. I'm just listening to some man's conversation about a woman, like. You know what I mean? Like, it's a dirty conversation, but it's just some man's conversation about a woman, right? Like, not who cares, but it's just this is a violation of someone's privacy. Same thing that they did in the Donald Sterling thing, right? Is they are trying to get you to accept the big brother state of surveillance and violations of privacy, right? To obtain whatever information, right? About racism, sexism, whatever, right? And that's how they're trying to get the left, how they're trying to brainwash them into accepting the police state, right? Into accepting a surveillance police state, right? That your private audio is subject to trial by media, So I say this thing that, that's sort of, the way men talk like that amongst themselves in private, right? So then you have the straw man come out, because actually people did try to argue. A couple of people, I think there were bots, I don't think there were people, tried to argue this with me when the story came out. And, they were immediately shot down. Just like, it's like you're missing the point. The bigger issue is the violation of privacy, right? You're missing the whole point in that story, right? But, so what happens is now I've said something and the mainstream culture will bring out a straw man. The mainstream culture controlled by the Masons, right, will bring out a straw man. In this case, it was Floyd Mayweather. A straw man is something that is easy to knock down, right? It's easier to knock down than the original thing, right? So when I say straw man, that's what I'm referring to, right? So Floyd Mayweather goes out there on his podcast or whatever, and he says that Donald Trump was just talking the way real men talk. Now, this is obviously a far cry from what I said, right? But it's close enough that you can still sort of Tell me what you think about me without directly coming to me. And that to me is a problem because that represents cowardice, right? I feel like if you have a problem with a man, you should let it be known, right? The thing is, I think people lost that argument and now they're just focusing and deflecting from the fact that I brought up that, hey, dummy, they are getting you to accept the surveillance state by saying, oh, I think this is bad. It's none of your business, really, if it's a private conversation. And that's the way you should be thinking about it. See, I think the problem was people lost the argument, and now to deflect from losing the argument, you focus in on this point that is easy to manipulate and deflect from, right? In this case, it was the real men talk that way, which of course we know is ridiculous. And let me sort of explain this for the people who don't understand. Floyd Mayweather is a masonically controlled puppet. When you're making the kind of money he's making, you are a puppet for the elite. They can get you to do and say anything, right? Because they control you and that money controls you. So it's simple, right? So the ad hominems come in with this as well because people get to poke fun at Floyd for being dumb, for what he said, right? They really want to call me dumb, but again, what have I said? They've lost the argument. So now they have to set up a straw man, which they can ad hominem attack. And an ad hominem is an attack on somebody that you're debating with that has nothing to do with what you're debating about. Right. They use the ad hominems to deflect from the things that I'm bringing up, the patterns that I'm noticing, right? If you notice, they don't ever talk about the meat of the issues I'm getting at. And there's a very particular reason for that. They will always attack and they will always use straw men to attack me, right? And they will beat up the straw man with the ad hominems. That's how it works.